Presents. And we had, if you noticed out here, the big orange school bus. We had our first crew come down from Lakeview. Thanks to the libraries of Eastern Oregon and Art Place grant. So, thank you. Spread the word.
This is a bigger turnout than we did in Lakeview Library.
Yay! Oh, I'm sorry for the library, but it came out. And you should, this happens once a month coming up, and we have Cowboy Poets coming up. We have a concert in August, all at the same, I think we'll go a little bit later, starting next one, 3 to 5 instead of 2 to 4, but come on out. So first I want to thank the 2 printmakers too, that Barbara Foster, who's here from Oakland, California, and she was in the studio, the FAR studio, and Talmadge Doyle, who is from Eugene, Oregon. And if you were lucky enough to see Talmadge, I didn't see you run the plate. Did you run the plate?
Oh yeah. It was fun.
It was great.
Good. And then if you got a chance to peek at our new Ray Trail press, which is really pretty cool out there.
That's a beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, and so we have 2 presenters here, and you'll have time afterwards to also to mingle with the artists. Our first presenter is an Iranian-American poet from Santa Cruz who teaches at Santa Cruz, Farnaz Fatemi. Is that right?
Nicely done.
All right.
This is the end of a really productive first week here, and I'm really excited about it. I'm going to read from 2 of the projects that I've been working on since being here. And the first project is poetry. The second is a little bit of a hybrid, and you'll hear. But the first 2 poems are from a series of poems which engage with photographs taken by Iranian women photographers. And so I'm going to show you 1 photograph for each poem. And I find that, it's one great reason to be here, to interact with visual artists. I really respond to visual arts. But this is you'll see a concerted series. Sorry for the wait, but the first photo, I'll just tell you, they're both by Iranian. They're 2 different photographers. The first one, her name is Nusha Tabakolian. And the second one, you might actually recognize. She's more famous, Shireen Neshat, and she lives in the United States, in New York City. So this is the first one. And you guys see it reasonably well? I'm the more important thing anyway, so. So this is called Listening to Herself. She doesn't love and she doesn't hate the words she hears inside her head. She can tell the difference. He pretended he didn't remember the nasty thing he'd said. Blamed dinner. Hadn't it made them both sick? She closes her eyes, hopes the magpies come back to distract her. They land on things she leaves sitting around. A stuffed dresser, all her son's baby teeth, the knife set from her mother. They offer her new stories. They retell old ones. If the birds come today, they will tell her he is finally going to leave, or he is finally going to stay. She trusts these harbingers, made from her own mind, an untwined conversation she can retwine when she needs. This listening doesn't come easy. It's private. Her husband sees her face change. The brow tenses, lips relax. He stiffens like a board with jealousy. Her eyes stay closed. Okay, next one. It's a little harder to see because it's black and white. It's called Identified. The ink of my eyes is the same you used to write me out of the story. Didn't you know this? What's drawn on my face is mine, though. I made these lines. I can unmake them and make them again. They're here to be erased, my skin and lids uncovered. And my hands. Do you want to lift yours to my face? How that would change me. If you love me, Don't join me. See what the edges of my hands look like as they disappear into my flowered chador. I disappear into myself. I don't need your help. I see myself in this mirror. I say, it is me, woman, you see, standing. I tell you who I am. You won't know without me. I have clothed myself in flowers and ink. I have made myself this woman who you think you could love. I could make myself someone else you don't. I could make myself love myself. I can't make myself love you. So thanks, that was brand new experiments, guys. This is, oh, I don't know. The next project is, the next piece is from a book I'm working on, which is sort of loosely nonfiction memoir, but it's really memoir from the land of poetry. The book is made up of independent sections, which each dwell on separate themes, although everything's related to my personal engagement with the country of Iran, with the culture that I received in the United States as an Iranian American, and how I've been negotiating all those forces. So this excerpt that I just made for time is from a long piece on language, and the way the pieces work is there's sort of a series of nuggets. They're strung together, so they're little sort of prose poems that follow each other in this hybrid form. And so you're going to hear little things. And I've excerpted them and sort of pushed things together to keep the order of the whole piece so you can hear that. But they're excerpted to sort of hit the range of shame, sadness, love, like the really important emotions are in here, just to share it. And the one thing I want to explain that is a word that, there's a lot of Farsi words in here, but the one word I want you to know is manteau, and that's the long coat that it's not a chador, but it's what I would wear if I went. It covers everything. So when you hear that, I just think that's, so you don't get distracted by that manteau is the thing that you put on. And this piece is called Sister Tongue. On the plane to Iran, I inventory what I need. Words, ways to speak them, moments when they matter. These are the things I've promised myself I'll remember. Esh, how the word love sounds in my other language. I hear the word, the back of my mouth closing in unison with the speaker's the heart thickening, chest relaxing. With a different passport, my eyes moving right to left on the page, my tongue tastes different, curls and loops, then drops back into my palate. Esh, the sound of cooing made-up words I could have said to other children when we were young. An intuition. Back when we understood each other no matter how the words were spelled. I meet a woman on the streets in Tehran who's come from New York for a few days. We share the half-tones between English and Farsi. I recognize how she points and swears. She understands how I flip my hair. We've only just met. I know her. This is how it feels to sound out June, to say eshkemeh, to tell you I will kiss you when you're asleep. My first month-long trip to Iran as a grown woman with my mother, my grandmother, and my twin sister. I do not talk much. My grandmother and mother do the work for us, though in the mornings, before getting so exhausted from paying attention I space out, I listen to understand. I learn that listening is work, too. We wanted to cool off from the June boulevards in Tehran. Leafy and tree-lined, they were old, but it was June and the air was thick, and we still felt our manteaus shutting us inside. It was early. I hadn't yet learned how to wear one without hiding in it. The pockets, I'd initially thought they were such a good idea. They added layers between the layers, and my hips sweat nonstop. The space under my bra line was soaked. We wanted to cool off. In a small grocery market, we linger at the melons, my grandmother and an aunt repeating the names. The store sold ice cream cones, lemon-hued and rose-flavored. My aunt asks me to order my own. She has seen me listening. knows how I'd feel if I could. I do. I don't know what it sounds like. I'm too busy watching the man's face as I speak to see if I'm understood. I am. I remember the ice cream from 25 years before. I move into the language carefully, hoping to make just enough sense in speech, and my aunt's eyes light up, as if she were me, sounding out the words, putting one word on the string of words behind the previous one, hearing the click and clack of the words coming together as a full strand, a whole meaning. She smiles, then whoops one of her half-inhaled, half-screamed laughs. She looks at me and tastes her ice cream, thinking about how I braved out of my silent shell for a moment, yells, "Ah, Farnaz, Kaif Mikoni." Do you know what Kaif means? Oh, Farnaz, Kaif is like, we're having a blast, aren't we? I smile, bewildered. Though I've been hearing Farsi all my life, this still happens. I learn how to use a word in the right place at the right time, and my head feels saffron bright, pure sunlight. A chorus. Khariji asked, "Are you a foreigner?" The Allah Akbar, Azan, the call to prayer. Allah is not God to me. He's my mother and my great aunt's God, creature with a name I never say. When I've said God, I've said I'm not sure I believed there was one, though I know Amajun's Allah was real. I heard her say the word, and I saw her kneel into the carpet in her room and pull a chador up around almost everything, and leave her hands with her beads and her small Quran in her lap, whispering words about him, to him, with him. When I'm in Iran, the call to prayer is a call to God, a call about God, an invocation. I join. My blood moves when I hear the phrase Allah Akbar sung like music. It's not music. It's the sound of crave, of need, insistence. My skin hairs become pert, feel warmed, act independent, as if they could get a crush on the sound of a phrase that is so trite when translated. God is great. Big whoop. But when it is sung, tear me away. The azan is not making any excuses. It's candle oil as it ignites, the overtaking. The voice stops dogs in the street, incites admiration, self-erasure. A windbreak of cypress doing all its day's work, tree tops shushing the deepening roots, hum of the birds living within as they spread from limb to limb. My shadow self, everything I don't say, can't, or wish I did. But also the self I never had to become. The family's remains buried at the base of a different tree. Thought of by no young mother, missed by no one. The twilight lifetime that lingers in songs other people sing. I have always heard Farsi, though I stopped speaking it when I was very young. There wasn't one moment when I was a girl that my mother suddenly began speaking it to us. Most of my early memories are in the cold, white, fake marble entry hallway where I was 3, 4, 5, and my parents are yelling at each other in Farsi and my mother is crying. I'm sure I didn't understand the words then, though I understand the meaning. My father, defensive, on his way out. My mother, trying to get the scene to end differently. By that time, I'd been in Iran already. Perhaps I spoke Farsi as a toddler. It was no doubt spoken to me. For a summer, after my grandmother moved from Iran to LA, we lived with her. After summer school, my sister and I took the bus to her house. We'd memorized how to tell her about the ride, and we knew we were allowed to throw in English words like beach or shopping. We knew she knew them. We could tell her when we felt sick, and we knew how to say school and friend and foods and objects. One day, I got stuck. I felt sure I knew the word for plastic bag, and I needed one for a sandwich. I asked her where they were. I stood there, holding my sandwich, waiting, 13 years old. She was confused. "Chimicha, Azizam, what do you want, sweetie?" "Hakat," I repeated, reciting the word for envelope, as if all young girls took them to the beach. She started to laugh and moved to her drawers, pulling out a plastic bag, said something like, "Is this what you want?" I nodded, taking it in. She said in Farsi, "This isn't an envelope, this is a bag," her eyes beaming with affection. My own bugged out. I realized my mistake, tried to burn the word in my head forever. I tried to laugh, but I was overwhelmed, annoyed by my own muteness. Retreated for the rest of the day. For years, when I try to remember the word for bag, I think of the word for envelope instead. When I speak my Farsi, I see gold flakes floating in the pan. I taste the plum-colored pomegranate walnut in the sounds of Azizan when my great-aunt looks at me from her tiny scarved head. And the mint dressing she makes is summoned by the other words she uses to love me when I am young and nervous at a new school that is near the house where she lives. When I speak Farsi, I speak imperfectly, hazarding conjugations, connective syllables. But the syllables unfurl on the wide silk carpet from the floor of my grandmother's Tehran living room. Crooked words, stretching out on aquamarine medallions, teal paisley, and scales. They write themselves, elbow up. They make enough sense. When I speak Farsi, I see the thick-toothed smile of my grandmother, sounding out the words in a whisper under her breath. She is rooting for me in her elegant pants, holding her carefully packed pocketbook with proud, wet eyes. When I speak Farsi, the memories from my childhood are all good ones. I am in a parallel universe of joy and generosity, a room in which I am not afraid of who I am, only curious. When I speak Farsi, all the people who love me have their hands on either side of my face. Turn by turn, they spend one long moment seeing who they hold, and I see them.
And our last presenter from Eugene, Oregon, Noah Stricker, who is a world-renowned bird photographer, author, and now is working on is this your third book? Third book?
Yes, that's right.
Third book about, I'll let him tell you. I know what it is. Noah Stricker.
All right. Well, yeah, I just got over here to Playa on Monday, and I'll be here for about a month. This place is awesome. I'm working on a book, and in this past 5 days, I think I've written more words than I wrote in the past 2 months at home, so things are going well. I thought I would just read you, this is going to be short and sweet, the first 4 paragraphs of this book. Chapter 1, from the top. And this is the first time I've read this to anyone, so this is kind of exciting. And then after that, this will kind of give you an introduction to the whole plan, and then I'll show you a 5.5-minute video that takes you through this adventure I had. Okay, Chapter 1. On New Year's Day, superstitious bird watchers like to say, the very first bird you see is an omen for the future. This is a twist on the traditional Chinese zodiac, which assigns each year to an animal, like the year of the dragon, or rat, and it's amazingly reliable. One year, I woke up on January 1st, glanced outside, and saw a black-capped chickadee, a nice friendly creature that everybody likes. That was a fantastic year. The next New Year, my first bird was a European starling, a despised North American invader that poops on parked cars and habitually kills baby bluebirds just because it can. Compared to the year of the chickadee, the year of the starling was pretty much a write-off. So it was with some anxiety that on January 1st, 2015, I looked around to see which bird would set the tone for the next 365 days. I already knew this would be no ordinary year. I just quit my only regular job, rented out my house, broken up with my girlfriend, spent most of my savings, and then, with no more possessions than would fit in a small backpack, made my way literally to the end of the earth. Now, at the stroke of midnight, on top of a Russian ship in the frozen reaches of Antarctica, with a bottle of champagne in both hands and binoculars dangling around my neck, I was in a hot tub with a Scottish historian, a penguin researcher, and a geologist. What bird could possibly tell where all this was heading? With any luck, it would be a penguin. I'd gone to great lengths to to engineer this New Year's celebration right after the obligatory countdown and toast. 2015 could be declared the year of the penguin, which, karmically speaking, could not possibly go wrong. In the previous week, I'd spent a lonely Christmas night on the floor of the Los Angeles airport as I traveled from the US to the southern tip of Argentina, caught this ship, sailed across the tumultuous Drake Passage, and positioned myself for this moment, this pivotal moment when fate would set in motion the biggest year of my life, and possibly of international birdwatching history. The goal was simple. In the next 12 months, I hope to see 5,000 species of birds, about half the birds on Earth, in the ultimate round-the-world journey. After leaving Antarctica, I'd spend the next 4 months in South America, then migrate north through Central America, the Caribbean, and Mexico, reaching the US in May. If things went well, I'd fly over to Europe, do a big U-turn through Africa, bounce across the Middle East, zigzag across most of Asia, and island hop down under to ring in the following New Year. The itinerary included more than 40 countries and no days off. Nobody had ever attempted such a trip. And bird-brained experts argued about whether it was even possible to spot 5,000 species in one calendar year. By the end, this journey would surpass my wildest dreams, but for now, all I knew was that the clock would start ticking at midnight. So, I have to say,
Well, what was the bird?
that's true. I will give that away. The bird was not a penguin in the end. It was a bird called a Cape petrel, which is a beautiful little seabird. I guess the wingspan's about that wide, that only lives in the very far southern ocean. So people love Cape petrels. Once I saw that, I was like, phew, okay, I'm gonna start on this here.
What does that bird signify?
I think it signified good luck, and looking at the way that the rest of last year went, I think it was definitely a harbinger of success for this big year of birding. This video, I wasn't really planning to put together a video, but I took all these clips everywhere I went, and so at the very end of the year, on a flight between Singapore and India, I put almost this whole video together. So it's not like the most perfect video in the world, but it gives you quite a good idea of
as I step into the great unknown. Yeah, I can feel the gates now. Bass drums are beating my soul, so I feel the world away. Just like an ancient scale, and it feels so good. Cause life looks so bad, and I say, and I say, so cry for me when you find that I'm gone. I'm ready. arms of love. Where I swear, there's no winter where I'm going now. And I say, and I say, trumpets erupting from our lungs as we join in the chorus, celebrating the end of ours. We will open up our eyes, seeing everyone needs strength to stand. For everything that's right is an instrument in our hands. We all sing the we all sing the
You guys have any questions about this crazy adventure?
I didn't see any petrels.
I do. I think, but from talking to the other night, I think it's not really a question, but talking about where you stayed and how and all the people that you connected with.
Yeah, so this wasn't just a birdwatching trip. It was kind of like the couch surfing of birdwatching trips. Right? The idea was to never go birding alone. And the cool thing about birdwatching is that even in just the past 10 or 15 years, it's gone from being a very first world activity to a very international thing. So there's birders in all these different countries now. And so for months ahead of time, I was contacting birders in all of these different places. And I just call them up and say, hey, I'm going to be there from May 19th to 23rd next year. You want to do some birding? And most of them said, yeah, sure. And so I slept on people's couches and floors, and they took me to their local hotspots, and that's kind of how it worked.
See, that part of the story is amazing. Besides all the birds.
Yeah, I think I saw more than 6,000 birds, but I probably went birding with several hundred different people throughout the year.
Wow. And so, Noah, how did you record each bird? I mean, 6,042.
Yeah,
Each one a photograph or?
So, yeah, that's almost always one of the first questions is, well, how do you prove it?
Yeah, can we see that, please?
Yeah, birding is more or less on the honor system. I had a camera and I took photos of everything I could, but there's a lot of birds that are too far away or that fly by too fast and you can't get a picture. And so as long as you see the field marks and you're sure, then you can add it to your list. There's 10,000 or so birds in the world, so I saw more than half, which was pretty cool. It was a official world record. The previous world record was 4,300, so I pretty much blew that away. And and I had witnesses for all the birds I saw.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Which bird did you like? Was like the best one for you to feel? It's like, oh my god, that's cool that I saw that bird.
Oh yeah, it's hard to pick favorites. I think probably before I left, my most wanted bird was a bird called the harpy eagle, which lives in South America. It's an eagle that's about that tall. And it eats monkeys and sloths. Flies around the rainforest and just picks them off out of the treetops. And it's spectacular. It's got this huge crest on top of its head, and when it spreads its wings out, they're really broad, and it's got an amazing black and white pattern on its wings. And they're extremely rare because they need large tracts of undisturbed rainforest to survive, and there's not many places like that left. So I was very fortunate in Brazil. The birder I contacted there said, yeah, we just found this harpy eagle nest, and it's sitting there. And so we went to look for it, and I was expecting to get there, see a huge, massive nest and an eagle sitting on top of it. And we saw the nest, and there was no bird. And we sat there for 4 hours waiting for this harpy eagle to come back. And meanwhile, I'm calculating like all the other birds I'm missing because I got average like one bird an hour for the whole year or something crazy. And finally, after 4 hours, the male harpy eagle flew in with a half a coati in its talons. A coati is kind of like this raccoon-like animal, and then just sat there and devoured it on the tree right in front of us.
Wow.
Did it know you were there?
Oh yeah, it was totally aware we were there, and it did not care.
What led you to do this kind of work?
Oh, I got inspired on birds. I went to school in Eugene at a private school called Oak Hill Elementary School. And my 5th grade teacher put a bird feeder on our classroom window. You know, one of those clear feeders that suction cups right to the glass. And she'd stop class every time a new bird showed up and make us identify it. And I thought it was kind of cool, and went home. My mom and dad have about 20 acres outside of Eugene, so we've got lots of birds in our yard. And I started trying to figure them out. It wasn't like my family or my friends were into this at all. And finally, I convinced my dad to take me over to Malheur for a long weekend at the John Scharf Migratory Bird Festival when I was about 11, I think, and went on some field trips and then started meeting real bird watchers in the field, and they were very excited to find an 11-year-old who was actually interested in birds. And so it's a slippery slope after that. Yeah.
I have several questions. I fell in love with birding when I walked 31 miles across the Everglades in July of 1975.
Oh wow.
One of the 2 people I walked with was getting her master's in ornithology at University of Miami. And I was going to ask you if you had seen a harpy. Did you go to Mongolia?
Oh, you know, Mongolia was on my original target list of places I've always wanted to go. But when I put together my itinerary, a year sounds like a long time, but when you try to fit the whole world into it, it becomes quite short. So Mongolia had to be cut, not because it's not an awesome place, but because there's just not enough endemic bird species there to keep up, like, you know, per day necessary averages. So that's one place I really want to go back to and visit.
So if you had a quota per day, just curious because Mongolia got cut.
Yeah.
I didn't see Bolivia on there, like there's Madidi National Park.
Yeah, Bolivia is extremely diverse. In general, the places in the world with the most species of birds are South America is #1 by far, and particularly northwestern South America, and then the rainforests in Central Africa, and then Southeast Asia. And as you go toward the poles, you get fewer and fewer bird species. I went to Antarctica just because I wanted to. But Bolivia is very diverse, but it does not have as many endemic bird species because it shares a lot of those birds with neighboring Brazil and Peru. And I spent 3 weeks in each of those countries, and so I swept up most of those birds I would have seen in Bolivia.
Well, like a huge chunk of, like a big chunk of Brazil used to be Bolivia, and a big chunk of Peru used to be
Yeah, well, there you go. So it's not just diversity that's important, it's also how many birds you see in a place that you're not going to see anywhere else. And so islands become more important too.
Okay.
How did you identify all these birds? Did you rely on the people you were with mostly, or did you do a lot of homework ahead of time?
I did as much homework as I could. Before I left home, I only brought literally a small backpack that I could carry on to any airplane or bus. And so I didn't have room for any bird books in there. So before I left, I piled up all the field guides I thought I would need. It was literally a stack taller than me. And I went through the whole stack and I photographed and scanned every plate. And I put them all on my phone and my laptop. So I had all the references I needed. But, I mean, you can't learn 10,000 species of birds all at once. So some places I was pretty familiar with because I'd been to before, like I'd spent time in South America and I at least had a grasp on what to expect there. But when I got to Africa, I'd never been to at all before in my life. And 95% of everything I saw there was new. And so then I was more heavily reliant on all these local people that I was birding with because they live there. Those are the birds that they're experts in. It would be like if someone called me up and said, hey, I want to come birding in Eugene. I'd be happy to point out birds. Showing someone else a live bird is almost as good as seeing one yourself.
So I'm curious what you're writing, because the first page of your book was so compelling.
Oh, thank you.
Brought us straight in. We were there.
Good.
So the birding part is huge. So is writing what you do? Tell us what you're writing.
Yeah, so the book will be about this project, but it's not going to be like a chronologic journal entry style. First, I went here and I saw these 10 birds, and then I saw this, and then I saw this, and then I saw that would get really boring really fast. It'll be more stories and weaving things together and making it into a narrative. I've written a couple of books before. My last book was about bird behavior. It's called The Thing with Feathers, and it's different chapters contrasting things that birds do with things that people do and making all these parallels. And that came out a couple of years ago, and it was after that book got some nice reviews that then I sat down and basically wrote a book proposal and said, for my next book, I want to go around the world and look at birds for a year. And then when Houghton Mifflin said yes, I had the advance in hand, and that's what funded the project. Cool, all right, one more question.
Do you do any conservation work in regards to bird habitat, blue water filters, things?
Yeah, I do conservation stuff. In general, I'm a roving bird nerd these days, working on all different kinds of projects. So I graduated from Oregon State in 2008 with a degree in fisheries and wildlife and a minor in fine art. And since then, I've been working for a magazine called Birding Magazine, which is the magazine of the American Birding Association, as an editor. And that's kind of part-time. And then for 4 or 5 years after I graduated, I did almost full-time seasonal field research projects with birds. So like, I lived in the middle of the Australian outback for 6 months, and I lived in Amazon and eastern Ecuador for 4 months, and I lived in Antarctica in a tent for 2.5 months, and I did a bunch of stuff like that. And then the past several years, I've been working as a onboard ornithologist on expedition cruises that go to Antarctica and the high Arctic for a couple months out of the year, and seem to be doing more and more writing these days, so I guess that's where things are headed. But yeah, thank you again. I'll hang around if you have any more questions, and thank you all for coming out. This has been great.
Yes.